Well, this one is being tabled.
Thanks for that.
And I'm going to,
So this is what, so, yeah, that's mine. No,
Well, I could do it. on the
So this is,
Yeah, yeah.
here it all, it's in the form of a presentation.
No, that would be good. And
I
then
hadn't seen
the
what
other
you
months, if you're,
now.
are you gonna try to set up a
I mean, it's
monthly
just
or every other
fine,
month?
it's
Or
just,
will
I
I
think
get
it's a
talked about it the
presentation,
first
so.
one? Because I don't know that it has to be every month, but you may
Of
know.
course, you've
what-
seen the jolly trolley details, and then she's doing the presentation. So we'll see what people think about that.
Lights are on now. Mine says 8:59. 8:59. 9 o'clock just turned.
we're going to call this meeting to order. We've said the Pledge of Allegiance in our previous meeting, so we don't need to. And just for the record, can you show that 6 commissioners are present? There's 1 seat empty. It's vacated by Commissioner McGinnis. And we're going to move right into the city manager. Your acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Corrado Construction has been working with the City of Rehoboth Beach since December of 2015, when we first began the City Hall complex project, including the police department and the parking department. Corrado was first awarded the contract for demolition and site work of the new municipal complex. They've always been precise in their efforts, and they paid particular attention to safety and the detail of the project. You'll recall this was a very compact site. Their cooperation with city staff regarding parking issues and coordination during the entire 2-year process, in my opinion, could not have been any better. I attended every coordination meeting for the project, and the architectural team, the city's construction manager, other subcontractors were present as well. Corrado's representatives were engaged throughout these meetings and very receptive to the concept of teamwork. There were many moving parts and to the project, and it seems as though there was always moving a pile of dirt from one place to another, and we needed to be receptive to that. So today, I'm pleased to introduce representatives from Corrado. Vice President Jerry Denny is here, and the construction project manager, Kevin Rowe, is here as well. They recently received the Associated Builders and Contractors of Delaware Construction Excellence Program Award for their work related to the City of Rehoboth Beach City Hall construction project. So, Jerry, if you'd like to introduce the rest of your folks that are here?
Up at
Certainly.
Right in that microphone.
Okay. All right. First off, good morning, and we'd like to thank Sharon Lynn for inviting us to be a part of your meeting. And again, with our other introductions, I'm Jerry Denny. I'm Vice President of Corrado Construction. Corrado Construction is we say a full-service site work contractor. The organization's been around for over 70 years. Recently, we opened an office in Millsboro. We have our main office in Newcastle, and we also have an office in Millsboro. I run the office in Millsboro, and they were basically tied to this project in particular. Kevin Rowe is project manager for us. Michelle Sotolo is our office manager out of the Millsboro office. Also joining us are representatives of the Associated Builders and Contractors of Delaware. The Associated Builders and Contractors is a national organization, and basically what I would say is they promote construction through various things that they do, and they're very active in the construction industry through Delaware. They have offices in Newcastle, and we also have an office in Georgetown. And we're very happy to introduce Ed Capodanno, who's the president of the Associated Builders and Contractors of Delaware, and we have Charlie Timmons, who heads up the Sussex County branch. As Sharon mentioned to you, a little over 3 years ago, we were awarded this project with the city of Rehoboth, and we were extremely excited. First off, it was a major project in Sussex County, and it was a challenging project. And I don't know how many of you know details of the job, but one of the big problems we had, or big complexities, was the actual demolition of the existing city hall while leaving the convention center intact. When we first came out to look at this project, we were, scratching our heads, but we were fortunate enough to team up with some good subcontractors and suppliers that helped us on this project. Some of the other things, complexities we had, what Sharon said was, we had to do the project in phases. So we had to do one side, and then we had to do the other side. So like she said, a lot of times it seemed like we were moving dirt from one side to the other and back and forth. We also were awarded the contract with Whiting Turner for the basement. And again, another somewhat complex project because we had a very tight site. We had to dig a basement, and there was also water in the basement. So we had to come up with a plan of how to do that. And working with Whiting Turner, the city, EDIS was involved. We shored the basement, we dewatered the basement, and again, you can see the results that we have here. We were extremely also excited about it because we knew at some point in time when the project was done, this would be the center, we consider it the centerpiece of the city. And I mean, this is a phenomenal facility from the outside, the inside, and again, to me, it's something that you all should be extremely proud of, and I know we are. So each year, ABC has an annual banquet, and at that banquet, they hand out construction excellence projects. We were fortunate enough that this year we were awarded the construction excellence project for the City Hall project. We felt it was important for us to share that award with the city because during the course of the construction, from Sharon Lynn to other people throughout the city, we built a relationship that helped us complete the project on time and be very successful. And Ed, would you do the honors, please? Sure. So we would like to present this award to the city and share this with the city. And again, this is from the ABC of Delaware. It's a construction excellence for our part of the project for the site civil work on the City Hall. Ed?
Well, I appreciate it, Jerry, and just want to let you know a little bit about our awards program. So we're part of a national organization, and this year we had 32 entries that applied for our Construction Excellence Awards, and the City of Dover was one of the Excellence Award winners out of the 31 projects that were done. The judges are non-ABC members that are not affiliated with our association. They're architects, engineers, and people that are not affiliated with ABC, so there's no back there. So they do a nice job of coming down. They do a site visit. They do an interview with Jerry, review his booklet, and without a doubt, the center that you're here today shows that they're an Excellence Award winner by far, and we're happy to present this award on behalf of our organization and to Corrado Construction as well. So.
Get Kevin in here too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very,
so
very
much.
much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Sharon, and congratulations to the city of Rehoboth Beach for getting this award. I think it is a spectacular award, and I think the project deserves it, so thank you. Let's see, any correspondence? I don't think I saw any. Before we go into public comment, I just wanted to read something. I know I read a little something on Friday, and there were a number of people on Friday here with commentary about the request by the city to remove the nativity scene that had been placed on the bandstand premises without permission. And unfortunately, that incident had also created a number of very disturbing emails, voicemails, and phone calls to city staff on Friday as well as over the weekend. A lot of miscommunication of information surrounding the display of the nativity scene, so I just wanted to say a little bit of something about that before any public comment or before we move on. Since last year, there's been an inquiry about the location of the previous nativity scene display that was previously at the Wilmington Trust M&T property on Rehoboth Avenue. As recently as this past Sunday, there was conversation about the placement of the nativity scene on public property. No one at this present administration had any idea where the display was located that had been on that M&T property. Apparently, others outside the city administration did know where it was located. During the conversation that took place on that Sunday evening, it was communicated by the city that in order to erect any type of religious display, it would be appropriate for all local religious organizations to be contacted and offered the same opportunity in order for the city to be fully inclusive of all denominations. The city feels that it is necessary to be sensitive to the needs and feelings of all members of our religiously diverse community. Unfortunately, this suggested path forward was misconstrued as permission for the local Catholic organization to move forward and place the display on city property. There was never any permission given by the city for this display. Once the city found that the display was erected without city permission, the group that put it there was asked to remove it from the city property. At no point did the city convey that the city did not allow a nativity to be displayed within city limits. Singular displays of this sort are more appropriately placed on private property. The city was just following city protocol about city property. The city would like to avoid appearing to endorse or disapprove of any one type of religion. The city has no issue whatsoever about the local Catholic Church, St. Edmund's, placing the nativity scene on their property, which has a very prominent place on King Charles Avenue. I believe this is the best solution at this point in time. Going forward, however, the city will work with the local council of religious organizations that present a plan for the possibilities of an all-inclusive display within city limits. This plan should be submitted to the city before the 2019 holiday season to give the city plenty of time to review and coordinate with all of these organizations. Thank you. With that, we'll move into public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to say anything? If not, okay, we're going to move right to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. A town hall is scheduled for Saturday, January 5th, 2019, 10 a.m., to discuss a proposed transition of the city's wastewater facility to Sussex County. The meeting will be held here in the Commissioner's Room at City Hall. At this time, the public will have an opportunity to hear from the Mayor and Commissioners as well as from Sussex County staff regarding the importance of transitioning the city's wastewater treatment plant operations in the county. This is not an issue to be taken lightly, as it has been in consideration for over a year. The Mayor and Commissioners feel strongly that every opportunity be afforded to all property owners in the city of Rehoboth Beach to hear the results of the rate study and the prospects for the future. A letter is being sent out today announcing the town hall, and the letter will provide information about the proposal. A postcard town hall announcement is scheduled to be sent to residents mid-December. And information on the town hall will be posted on the city's website and also social media. Happy to say the Park Avenue Water Main project has been completed. The street paving contract, this is the citywide street paving contract. The contractor, Grassbusters Landscaping, has completed all the paving of the designated roads. The complete restoration, painting, and striping is anticipated to finish the end of this week. And the project in the amount of $372,596 has been successful with additional funds, and additional funds will be budgeted in next year's CIP as we do on a regular basis. Second Street Improvement Project, the contractor that's right around the corner, Baltimore and Second Street. Contractor has completed the sidewalk. Items regarding the completion of the project are the railing and planting of 4 trees, and the entire project is scheduled for completion at the end of December this month, and it is on time. AT&T antennas. AT&T has erected the small cell towers on Rehoboth Avenue median across from the restrooms, Rehoboth Avenue median at 2nd Street and Wilmington Avenue, and 1st Street on the southwest corner. Contractor is reviewing the design options at the boardwalk and Baltimore Avenue. For that site, hopefully won't need a DNREC permit. The first antenna was installed on the Delaware Avenue cupola and is currently operational. So these are the 5 small cell site antennas that were agreed upon by the commissioners earlier this year. The Snowplow Rodeo was held and just recently sponsored by the DFIT, Delaware Founders Insurance Trust, which the city is a member of. 2 city employees participated in the Snowplow Rodeo, and our own staff members from the Streets Department, Tom Caffrey and Brian Harmon, they participated in the event, and Brian actually won an award for the best performance during this event. So we're very proud of him. Just recently, the city was awarded 2 matching grants last week, notified December 5th by the Water Infrastructure Advisory Council, 2 grants totaling $82,500. The first application was for a surface water planning grant through DNREC's Division of Watershed Stewardship. Rehoboth Beach submitted the grant application on behalf of a partnership with the town of Dewey Beach and Sussex County, and the grant will provide matching funds for the development of a Silver Lake and Lake Comegys management plan. The plan involves mapping the existing stormwater infrastructure and identifying necessary maintenance, updating stormwater and drainage plans, preparing preliminary engineering reports, evaluating the water quality of the lakes, including best management practices for improvements, and outreach with stakeholders related to the findings from this plan. You'll recall that the city first applied for this when we started talking about stormwater improvements and just what needed to be done citywide. The second grant application was a drinking water planning grant through the Department of Health and Social Services, Division of Public Health. The city requested matching funds for a water facility study that will evaluate the city's existing potable water system from the production wells through treatment, distribution, and storage as it relates to existing and future water demands with recommendations for improvements. The plan will also include the creation of a water distribution model and updated water system mapping, which can be converted into the city's GIS database, as well as on Google Earth for ease of viewing. The model will assist in recommendations for the existing system, as well as future development. And my appreciation to Mr. Evan Miller for putting these 2 grants together, and congratulations on that. The Christmas and New Year's holiday schedule, City Hall will be closed on Tuesday, December 25th, and Tuesday, January 1st, 2019, in observance of Christmas and New Year's Day. There will be no residential trash pickup on December 25 or January 1st. Those days will be picked up citywide on Monday, December 24, and Monday, December 31st. The information will be is on the city's website. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager, just a quick question on the stormwater grant. When does that work begin, or do we know yet?
Well, we're in collaboration now with Dewey Beach and Sussex County, at least for the first one, and we'll be working with them moving forward. So it's in process now. We just needed to wait to hear about the grant. Both grants, any matching funding will be earmarked for the the budget, which you'll be hearing about in January.
Could you even take a guess at when some kind of executive summary might be available?
Well, I know that an executive summary will be prepared and available. I'll give by, I'll say, the first quarter of the year. And we'll be giving regular reports to the mayor and commissioners at your meetings.
Thank you.
Just a further question on that, Sharon. Will this impact stormwater that runs into both the ocean and our freshwater lakes?
Yes.
Very good, good. Congratulations on both of those grants. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. We'll move right to the solicitor's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, the 318 Country Club Drive Park and Shade Tree Commission appeal hearing that's coming before you all is scheduled for the 20th of December at 10 a.m. Written submissions by all the parties are due in that matter by this Friday. I also wanted to follow up just briefly on the mayor's comments at the outset of the public comment portion of this meeting, because I think it's easy to sort of lose sight of all the cases that are out there on the Establishment Clause. And you as commissioners are receiving a lot of emails, and I'm sure you're wondering what's truth, what's not. And so just briefly, there is a First Amendment to the United States Constitution that creates an Establishment Clause that basically says the government cannot coerce anyone to support or participate in any religion or its exercise. The case that I think you've seen in a lot of your emails is a case called Lynch. Lynch is a U.S. Supreme Court decision, 1984. It was a split decision, 5-4, and it did establish that in that particular case, a nativity scene did not violate the Establishment Clause. 5 years later, the same U.S. Supreme Court, in another split decision, in a case called Allegheny County, determined that a nativity scene did violate the Establishment Clause. So they're very fact-intensive analyses as to whether a nativity scene or other religious displays violate the Establishment Clause or not. In those cases, they were both placed on public property. The court seemed to come down in both instances. The decision was based upon whether the court majority believed that the overall effect of the display was to emphasize the religious nature of the symbols, or whether instead the emphasis was primarily secular. So you have, in each case, you have to analyze, is it primarily religious or primarily secular? And that's not the first time that the court has been split like this. The Supreme Court, as recently as 2005, looked at the display of the Ten Commandments, and in the same year decided that in Kentucky, in the capital, in the Texas state capitol, the Ten Commandments, display of the Ten Commandments did not violate the Establishment Clause. But again, in that same year, they found that in Kentucky, the display did violate the Establishment Clause. So it's very fact-intensive. I know you're getting a lot of emails and you wonder what's correct. Just, I think that the mayor's statement is the best approach, in my view, is to establish an appropriate policy so that there's not sort of a haphazard decision as to whether something can remain or not. And probably that puts the city in the best position, at least legally. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we're going to move right in. I've asked Tony Pratt, who was previously with DENREC for 30-plus years, and is now presently a consultant representing the Association of Coastal Towns, or ACT, as it's called, to come in and talk to us about the issues involving the coastal towns, and specifically Rehoboth. Tony Pratt, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's nice to see everybody. It's nice to see everybody who works a regular job, because I don't anymore. Some of you get up every morning on Monday through Friday and go to work, and I just think whether I want to or not, which is a very nice thing to do. I want to give a little bit of background about ACT, the Association of Coastal Towns. I want to give it a little bit of background about what I bring to the table, I think, to the ACT. And then I want to talk a little bit about how the Association of Coastal Towns participation by Rehoboth is important for Rehoboth. So just a little bit of background about the Association of Coastal Towns. It was originally formed, I think Sam was the mayor, but I think that Bob Frederick was the mayor of Dewey Beach, if you can remember back to that generation. It was probably in the late 90s. At the time that the Association of Coastal Towns was formed, a couple of things that happened which were of note and important to the current and future discussion. In 1988, we did a study in DNREC when I was still there. I was actually just 8 years into my career at that point, looking at the future of beach nourishment in Delaware. At the time, we were anticipating some federal work, but there was needed to be some state-sponsored work to be done before the federal government was ready to come in with Corps of Engineers projects and start doing work, which began in earnest in Rehoboth in 2005. So in the late 80s, mid-late 80s, we put together a group under Governor Castle. It was decided at that time that the cost sharing would be split between the state and the local municipalities, and each municipality was beginning to come up with some money. We started in Fenwick, went to South Bethany, went to Bethany, and finally came to Dewey and Rehoboth. And at that time, each community was coming up with a cost-sharing formula. The General Assembly, at the time, Representative George Bunting became senator later, but at the time he was representative, and another representative of the Bay Coast, whose name escapes me just for a minute, brought about a change in state law and said 1% of the accommodations tax, hotel motel tax, would be utilized as the local share and relieved the towns from having to come up with any money. That's been the status quo ever since the late 1980s, early 1990s, and there is about maybe $2 to $2.5 million a year generated toward beach funding through the accommodations tax statewide, which is only for hotels and motels. It does not hit any other rental units at the beach or anywhere else. It's just for hotel, motel rooms statewide. Most of that revenue actually comes out of Newcastle County, out of the city of Wilmington, where more hotel rooms exist than do throughout the rest of the state, and there are 12-month rental demand up there. Cutting away to the Association of Coastal Towns, it was formed to have a stronger voice of the coastal communities. I think that transition from funding responsibilities being put back onto the state at a couple different levels between bond bill funding and state accommodations tax resulted in the ACT not having much of a mission. But as things have progressed, as more development has occurred, as sea level has risen a little bit, as we have more invested at the coast, there was the group thinking of several mayors a couple of years back that perhaps there were common issues to each one of the communities from Lewis to Fenwick. And those involve both beach nourishment issues and future funding, which is always a question. We'll talk a little bit about that more in a minute when we get to the Rehoboth concerns. The other issues are for most of the communities, and not for Rehoboth, but there is flooding from the Back Bay. Even Bethany Beach has the loop canal that comes in and floods the downtown section, but certainly Lewis, Henlopen Acres, Dewey Beach, Fenwick Island, Bethany Beach, South Bethany, all have issues with flooding on the bay side. There's also, for many of those communities, the need for navigational maintenance, so those are common themes throughout the Association of Coastal Towns formula thinking. In the case of, and so it's become active, it's become very much of a force. I think that Sussex County is very much embracing the ACT. I know that there's a lot more discussion at the state level and within the General Assembly about the collective voice of the 7 communities making up the ACT. It's become a good and positive force politically, and also shares among the mayors and then the commissioners and council members those things that are discussed and look at common solutions to common problems. The city of Rehoboth's involvement at this time, let me talk a little bit about what I bring to the table. I've had a 40-year career with the state of Delaware, 2 years of which were at the University of Delaware and 38 years with DNREC. And in DNREC, I ended up becoming the administrator of the Shoreline and Waterway Management section, dealing with coastal erosion, coastal flooding, the waterways of the state, National Flood Insurance Program, any number of things having to do with hazards and vulnerability and sustainability and resilience of coastal communities throughout the state. I'm also currently the president of the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association. I'm also on the advisory panel down at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, a Center of Coastal Resilience that is funded by the National Homeland Security Office. Very high funding for that nationwide program that has researchers throughout the nation dealing with coastal communities, flooding issues, and how we can resolve some of those issues. I've been on some National Academies of Science Studies. I have been on a Heinz Center study looking at coastal resilience and coastal communities. I've spent my entire career, adult career, dealing with these issues. It's what I've done forever and continue to want to do that. So I can bring a unique perspective and opportunity and connection to many elements at the federal and state level. I'm currently also under contract with the National Wildlife Federation. My old boss, Colin O'Mara, has hired me to be a coordinating member from the National Wildlife Federation with the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works that Senator Carper is the ranking member of, working closely with them on the Water Resources Development Act and the implementation of that act, and then getting together next year to talk about the next act that will come up as a biennial act. Those elements feed throughout the ACT. In the case of Rehoboth specifically, you do not have the same problem of channel maintenance. The Lewis-Rehoboth Canal passes through your backdoor area and is certainly a concern, but is a part of a larger network of waterways that will be hopefully better maintained in the future. Your problem, your issue that is ACT related, is really the beach. The beach is your livelihood. The beach is your foundation of your economy. If you took the beach away and had a solid wall and it was water on the other side, I would suspect it would have a severe dent on your economy, on your jobs, on the value of your homes, any number of elements. So it is the beach, and it's the ability to maintain the beach. So what is the challenges? What are the challenges the ACT is looking at specifically in Rehoboth? And it is the continued commitment at the federal and state level to fund very expensive work every 3 years. That's your schedule for the next about 40 years. You have 40 years left on your 50-year maintenance agreement. The maintenance agreement that was signed back in 2005, 13 years ago actually, was only the fact that there is an arrangement between the state and federal government that there will be the opportunity to continue to do work without having to go back and redraw plans and go back and get new easements. So we have set up, but what we don't have is any kind of fiscal commitment to continue to maintain that work. And under the current administration and under the current Congress, which is now Congress, of course, is going to change in January, there has been a lot of discussion at the federal level in the Corps of Engineers headquarters and also on the Hill in the Senate about the ability to maintain coastal communities nationwide and who should be paying. It's part of an infrastructure discussion. When you hear about national infrastructure, green infrastructure, the ability to weather against storms and natural hazards is part of that discussion, and that's where it's going to be housed. And there is at least overtures being made by the federal government that they are going to get out of the business of funding this work. Now, Congress hasn't acted on that, so I don't want to scare anybody in the room that they're going to change this situation. But there is very high-level, very sincere talks about going to a grant program, that money will be loaned to you, or not grant, but excuse me, federal loan program, that will be, money will be loaned to the city or to the state to do this work for capital improvement, and you'll pay it back over time. Well, that might work when you're doing a sewer treatment plant, for instance, wastewater treatment plant, where you have a 30-year payback period, and you have service for 30 years. When you're coming back and maintaining your beach every 3 years, you would basically have 3 years to pay off that loan, and then you get a new loan. And to me, that is really not much different than just funding the money right up front and paying for it as you go. So the challenges we have in Rehoboth are the ability to maintain that beach. And I can go back in memory to the summer of 2005 when Rehoboth Beach was the second of the two beaches nourished. We started in Marsh and Dewey Beach and started to nourish that beach when there was the first federal project. There was no dune in front of the boardwalk in Rehoboth. There was very little dune left in Dewey Beach. And on Memorial Day weekend, I have a picture in my old DENREC files. Somebody else has it up in DENREC now. Picture taken from the top of the Henlopen Hotel of the Friday afternoon before Memorial Day weekend, and there was about 10 to 15 feet of dry sand between the high tide line and the boardwalk. 13 years ago. And if the erosion rate of 3 to 4 feet per year, it would be easy to say from this vantage point that had we done nothing 13 years ago, you would probably have certainly no beach in front of your boardwalk, most of it. You would probably have converted to a seawall of some sort, and people would think twice about how much they're going to come and spend money to go walk the boardwalk, look at the ocean, and go somewhere else to go to the beach. So it really begins to get at the reality of the choices made. We have chosen in the state to go to sand and beach and dunes to protect. They do that. They also provide the recreational basis for your economy. So it's a double benefit. Federal government only counts the storm damage reduction benefits. The state's well aware of the recreational benefit and the jobs that it supports, the property values that it supports, the lively community economics that it supports. So that's the important role for Rehoboth Beach and the ACT. I think we have some challenges coming into the future. Every cycle of 3 years presents a challenge of finding enough money to do the work. And it's going to only get more difficult as time goes on because there are more communities nationwide that are drawing into this. And the last piece of this is that by having a project in place like you have, you're eligible for emergency funding like a Hurricane Sandy emergency funding, which comes through a supplemental. Regular order funding might be in the order of $75 to $100 million nationwide. You get a Sandy supplemental and it's $65 billion. So regular order funding is not taking care of the nation's problems. Supplementals are. We're going to see a supplemental that's going to be a combination of Hurricanes Florence in the Carolinas and Hurricane Michael in the panhandle of Florida. But that's also likely to be wound up at this administration with the forest fires that have been out west, the Alaskan earthquake that just occurred. They have not done with supplemental yet, and we're looking at a supplemental that might include all natural hazards and would be a less of a funding source for coastal. So I put a lot out there. I just wanted to let you know that I think the Association of Coastal Towns is the way to go. It's a stronger voice than each community fighting for their own. There's so much commonality between those 7 communities and what you all need to do. And that strong voice of the 7 mayors is something that the General Assembly is finding very important to pay attention to and know what you all want to do. So I'll open it up to questions or comments. And Mayor, start with you and the commissioners.
Well, I appreciate you coming here today, Tony. And after being at these ACT meetings for the last 18 months or so, it is very apparent that we all do have this commonality of the needs for our community. You know, and obviously we don't have the dredging situation or the Back Bay flooding, but the beach is our economy and the beach is our livelihood. And keeping up with these things and keeping up with the funding is going to be very important. And I appreciate the fact that, you know, you're willing to work for us and, you know, create a louder voice for ACT among federal as well as state levels, because I think that's going to be very important going forward, because there's always, just like anything else around the country, there's always the time that people start saying, well, you know what, I live in Kansas, you know, what's that beach money doing for me? And when I have a a tornado, and it's a very difficult thing. And I know, for example, with Superstorm Sandy, I remember how some of the people in Congress were saying, well, you know what, no, and cutting off certain amounts of money. And it's very important. And I think going forward, having the coastal towns together with the same voice creates obviously a louder voice, and I think there are positive things that can happen for us, and especially with somebody like you out there leading the charge for us.
You certainly retired from DNREC, but you're not retired at all, are you?
No, I'm not.
You've got quite a full plate. I wanted to let us be mindful that we are members. We've been members for a while of the American Shore Beach Preservation Association, in part to support that organization, but also Tony Pratt. Tony Pratt's been a friend to Rehoboth and a great partner through DNREC over the many, many years, looking out for our needs and everything. And I wanted to thank you for doing that. And also thank you, you came and spoke to the Boardwalk and Beach Committee recently. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Tony, thanks for all of the good work that you're doing, again, on behalf of our city. And it's enlightening to learn the history of some of this and the good work that's been going on and will continue to go on, I hope. You briefly referenced the canal, and it does flow through our city, and we do have some plans for that canal. We're in the midst of some serious fundraising that's going to really kick off, as I understand it, in the new year for moving us toward a public area there. And so that then brings to mind the need for dredging and the fact that over decades, that canal has been slowly filling in and has become quite shallow, particularly during low tide. Are there any serious discussions going on as to what could happen?
Yeah, there are, and so quick background on that. There are, in this country, there was, waterborne transportation was the first and foremost way of transporting goods and services, followed by the railroad and eventually roadway system for automobiles and trucks. And as we evolved from waterways into railroads and then on to roadways, we abandoned the maintenance of those channels that were dug. The U.S. government envisioned a network of channels throughout the nation, especially the Eastern Seaboard, and he authorized and funded the development of many, many channels throughout the state of Delaware. Inland bays, the Lewis-Rehoboth Canal, of course, was dug through upland and as part of the inland waterway system, which was officially abandoned by the federal government a number of years ago, the inland waterway navigation system, with the agreement of the state. In the state of Delaware, I think there's, if memory serves, from a couple years back, I think we have something like 21 federal channels in the state of Delaware, which 2 are being maintained by the federal government. The C&D Canal, Chesapeake Delaware Canal, and the Port of Wilmington, and that's it. A little bit of the Nanticoke River on the Baltimore district is being done, so that would maybe make 3. It leaves something in the order of 19 channels in Delaware that are federally authorized channels that should be maintained, should be maintained by federal authority and by federal funding to be part of this navigation system that is maintained, it's platted, it's maintained by navigation channel maintenance and also marked by the Coast Guard. 19 channels of which the federal government has done basically nothing in about 15 to 20 years. And that includes Roosevelt Inlet. There was some work done last year because of the oil response vessel that's in there. But going up the number of rivers up the Delaware Bay, they're not maintained. Those entrances are not maintained. The Lewis-Rehoboth Canal is not maintained. Indian River Inlet is not maintained as a channel any longer by the federal government. But it's not by declaration to the state of Delaware saying, we are getting out of the business. This has not been done. They never came to us and said, we're getting out of the business. We're turning it over to you. You need to grade up. The way it's not done is that on any particular year in the funding allocation, they don't get funding to do it. They still have navigation managers who are looking to get those projects done, and every year they submit a plan to get those channels done, at least some of them. And they're turned down because there's not enough money nationwide, similar to the problem I think is emerging for beaches. There's not enough money nationwide to maintain all the channels in the nation. So the Corps of Engineers has chosen to enact a formula saying we're going to look at the amount of commercial tonnage on a waterway, and we'll make a cut line based on whatever tonnage of commercial product, as we define it, is here. We don't have commercial tonnage in any of these waterways, so we don't make the cut. The other part of the problem, just to go on to it just for a second, is that there is a harbor maintenance trust fund that was established by tariffs on commercial vehicles, commercial vessels using ports around the nation. And that's a nice pot of money. It's been sitting there for a bunch of years, and Congress has decided over a number of years they were going to use that money for other things. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, they said, we've got to stop doing this. We have a 15-year recovery plan. By the end of 15 years, we're going to be using 100% of the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund to actually maintain our channels of this nation. But it's going to take us another 10 years to get there. The shortfall has presented a problem for the state because the state says, well, do we gear up? I mean, just philosophically, do we gear up and just take it on and fund it as we should and start doing these channel maintenance projects at our own? And then the federal government will say, well, we can just walk away and we don't have any more commitments, because what's the consequence of not doing anything at the federal level? The state will pick it up. But the state did go through a waterway management committee a couple of years ago and looked at our needs. And we identified at DENREC about a $3 to $5 million per year need to begin to catch up to the backlog of problems around the state. And the reaction to that at the General Assembly was to increase the boat registration fee by a certain percentage, which yields about $1.3 million per year against a $3 to $5 million need. That $3 to $5 million need complicates over years. First year is 3 to 5, next year could be 6 to 10. After that, it keeps on exponentially growing because every year stuff is moving around, and we're getting 1.3 to try to deal with it. Massey's Ditch is the first project we're trying to get off the ground. Listen to me, I still work there. They are trying to get off the ground this spring sometime, and that's about, I don't know if the cost estimate is $4 to $5 million job, that there's a combination of funds that can help take care of that. But that's a federal channel, and we're gonna have to deal with that as a state. So that's the challenge. You know, there's a lot of waterways need a lot of work. We look at the Lewis-Rehoboth Canal. Navigability is there in most places. The worst places where it enters into Rehoboth Bay, there's a big shield of sediment right in there. That would be maybe the number one spot. There's a couple spots in Lewis I know that are shallow. But DENREC is going to be looking a little bit more closely at some of the, I know they're doing a survey work of all the inland bays to find out what the channels actually are, the condition of the channels, and begin to comprehensively get at a list and prioritize a list when there's money available to do the work. The Center for Inland Bays under Chris Basin, this has been talked about in the ACT meetings, we just had a meeting last week on this, is going to do a study of the inland bays that will include the Lewis-Rehoboth Canal and will include up to Roosevelt Inlet. It'll be inclusive and talk about what's at risk if we don't do anything. What's at risk if we just continue to maintain at the same level of commitment that we have, and how we could change it for the better into the future. Economic studies, for those of you who know them, always look at a delta, a change. And so the change would be status quo, change what happens, negative, positive. Improved funding, negative, positive, delta change, and then do less than we're doing. And that would help give the appropriator some insight as to how the investment is worthwhile. So that's going to be kicking off here in the next few months, and the CIB has some money to do that, so that'll be very helpful, and that's something we'll feed to the needs here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I'm certainly glad you're at the helm of all this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks,
are we
Tony,
all.
very much. And I would say to the commissioners, I've been to one of the meetings so far, and it's really worthwhile going. You learn a lot, and it's very important to our community. So thanks again.
Next meeting is this Friday.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you this Friday. Next, we can move on to a brief presentation concerning a new proposal from Jolly Trolley about future possibilities inside the city of Rehoboth Beach. We have Miss Lydia Hastings from the Jolly Trolley family. She's going to have a presentation.
Great. Good morning, folks. I'd first like to thank Mayor Paul Coons, the city manager, city solicitor, and of course the city managers for having us here today. My name is Lydia Hastings. I'm the operations manager of the Jolly Trolley, and I'm the operations manager of Transit U Incorporated, which operates the Jolly Trolley. My parents, David and Christine Hastings, are both the president and vice president, respectively, and they founded Transit U Inc. in 1992 when I was 2 years old. I have literally grown up in the transportation industry. We are here today to give a presentation about an exciting, efficient, and convenient new service that will benefit Rehoboth Beach residents, visitors, and the city greatly. As many of you know, our business, Transit U Inc. and the Jolly Trolley, has provided service safe and reliably to Rehoboth Beach residents and visitors for over 26 years. And the Jolly Trolley has been a local household name since 1970 as a transportation provider. We are a family-owned and operated business which transports hundreds of thousands of Jolly riders each year, as we so affectionately call our patrons. We operate 3 separate LLCs, which include our fixed route shuttle service between Rehoboth Beach and Dewey Beach, our professionally chauffeured charter service, and our school bus service, which is contracted for 7 school bus routes in the Cape Henlopen School District. In total, we have over 25 vehicles in our fleet. We operate year-round through our 3 distinct businesses with trips ranging from in-state trips for weddings, special events, and nights out on the town, to longer trips such as airport transfers to and from PHL, BWI, or JFK, as well as trips to and from the Wilmington Amtrak station. Although our experience across all aspects of the ground transportation industry is unmatched, our family and business is not just a transportation provider. We are a familiar, friendly face in the community that many families, business professionals, and visitors rely on for various levels of their transportation needs year-round. Rehoboth Beach has undergone many changes throughout the years. From the streetscape project, which improves the traffic flow in and out of the city, to the wastewater ocean outfall program more recently, as well as an increase in year-round businesses downtown, which attracts year-round visitors and residents. All changes have been for the betterment of the community and to create a safe and efficient neighborhood for all. Over the past few years, we have seen a steady increase in traffic, not only on Coastal Highway Route 1, but on Rehoboth Avenue and downtown Rehoboth Beach. We can attribute this to many factors, including an increase in visitors, multi-day and single-day trips, delivery trucks delivering goods during high-volume travel times, as well as unregulated technology network companies, TNC operators such as Uber and Lyft, who pick up and drop off passengers in the middle of heavily trafficked areas at times. All of these factors deter visitors and residents from enjoying and visiting downtown Rehoboth Beach. TNC operators solve the travel needs for a few patrons at a time, while mass transit provides safe and reliable transportation for many more patrons while reducing traffic and creating a safer environment around the roadways. Additionally, many residents and visitors of Rehoboth Beach are discouraged while trying to find available parking spaces near downtown Rehoboth Beach and the boardwalk during the busy summer months. Parking spaces along King Charles Avenue and Deauville Beach are viable parking options, but may be too far of a walk for some to downtown Rehoboth Beach. Residents and multi-day visitors of Rehoboth are regularly faced with a decision to walk more than a mile or brave the increased traffic and parking difficulties in downtown Rehoboth to enjoy their favorite restaurants and shops. Our proposal is to create, organize, and run an in-town shuttle service connecting important city locations while transporting residents and visitors safely, reliably, efficiently, and conveniently to their desired destinations in Rehoboth. Our proposal is brought not only by our transportation business, but with many local business professionals, city officials, residents, and visitors who have personally voiced this need to our business. The Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle will connect the city of Rehoboth Beach as never before. Local residents and visitors will no longer have to navigate downtown traffic to find a parking space or walk long distances to eat at their favorite restaurants or an evening out on the boardwalk, or enjoy an evening on the boardwalk. Our shuttle will be a convenient and efficient mode of transportation to the Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk and Bandstand in downtown Rehoboth Beach with a continuous shuttle during the summer months. Our shuttle will also reduce and increase parking options in downtown Rehoboth Beach. Stop locations. So we've given this one a lot of thought. First and foremost, the Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk and Bandstand. This location will showcase our shuttle to a large audience and give passengers a perfect starting place to explore Rehoboth Beach, as well as offering a great view of the Atlantic Ocean. This location is utilized by our current Jolly Trolley fixed route shuttle between Rehoboth Beach and Dewey Beach, and was used by our historic predecessor, Jolly Trolley Tours, starting in 1970. The Henlopen Hotel and Surfside Place, this will service the north end of the boardwalk. Deauville Beach is another stop location that we're looking at. This location features a high volume of parking spaces that can be used to visit the beach or to hop on our shuttle to downtown Rehoboth Beach. Grove Park is another option as well. This stop is near to high-capacity residential areas just across the canal and nearby, as well as to the Rehoboth Beach Museum, Grove Park, and the Rehoboth Beach Main Street office, which is a tourist information center as well. King Charles Avenue, that will service the south end of the boardwalk, and then that completes the loop back to Rehoboth Avenue. Additional stops within that route will be added approximately every 2 blocks in concurrence with the city of Rehoboth Beach and our transit experience as well. So this is a graphic of our primary route. It will focus on benefiting the maximum number of patrons possible while remaining an efficient and convenient transportation service. Connecting Grove Park, the Deauville Beach parking lot, and the south end of the boardwalk to downtown Rehoboth Beach and Rehoboth Avenue will allow many Rehoboth Beach visitors and residents to park their vehicles once during the week and enjoy Rehoboth Beach with our shuttle and on foot. This will reduce in-town resident and visitor vehicular traffic and open up more parking spaces on Rehoboth Avenue and the surrounding streets, directly benefiting local shops and restaurants with more patrons consistently throughout the week. We will begin our shuttle service with 2 vehicles during the first year. We will operate from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. We anticipate a headway of 30 minutes per loop, which is standard for this type of route, with reduced headway with additional vehicles en route. Just for reference, our current shuttle is a 30-minute loop. So the Route B, the expansion route. The Gordons Pond expansion route will provide access to and from the Gordons Pond Beach and trailhead, as well as the pavilion there. This route will connect hundreds of parking spaces and beachgoers to downtown Rehoboth Beach. Additionally, it will provide access to Gordons Pond Trailhead for outdoor enthusiasts looking to enjoy the trail. An additional benefit will be a transportation option for North Shore's residents wanting to travel to and from downtown Rehoboth Beach. This expansion route, it's important to know this expansion route is part of a future growth plan after the Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle primary route is established. The vehicle type. Here we have an example of the vehicle type that we were looking at for this shuttle. We think it's important that a traditional Jolly Trolley be the vehicle used, as it has many functional as well as aesthetic benefits. Vehicle description. We're looking at an iconic vehicle. A traditional trolley is an icon of American culture and is instantly recognizable. Safety. As in all parts of our business, safety is our #1 goal. Our trolleys for the shuttle will feature 1 entrance and 1 exit, as well as safety handrails throughout the vehicle to make sure patrons exit and enter our vehicle safely. Visibility. Our vehicles will be brightly colored, inviting, and will become an instant icon and valuable service to visitors as well as residents. Open air. We believe it is important for our patrons to experience their transportation in a unique way. And we plan to feature open windows to allow for a unique open air experience. All open windows will feature clear roll-up, roll-down covers in the case of inclement weather. Non-diesel, we're looking at purchasing a non-diesel vehicle for this shuttle, classic trolley-style vehicles in that category. Seating capacity, we're looking at 20 to 30 seats for this vehicle, with standing room for passengers with standard safety handrails. Additional space for beach chairs as well as strollers will be provided as well to accommodate. So the benefits to the city, there's many of them. First and foremost, it's going to be easily implemented. Transit U Inc. will manage all organization, administrative duties for this new transportation system, which will directly benefit hundreds of thousands of residents and visitors in the city of Rehoboth each year. Our shuttle promotes a walkable city. It allows patrons to easily maneuver around the city using our shuttle service while reducing car traffic in town. It connects major parts of the city of Rehoboth Beach while remaining efficient and convenient to many residents and visitors. Our shuttle improves safety. Less traffic volume in popular commercial locations means a safer environment for residents and visitors. Our shuttle is part of the solution to traffic and parking issues. It serves many patrons each and every loop while reducing continuous vehicular traffic in downtown Rehoboth Beach. Let me give you a little scenario. 5 families with 5 cars are looking to enjoy a night out in downtown Rehoboth. They drive in on Rehoboth Avenue looking for parking spaces closest to their destination. They circle and they circle and they circle again, and they don't find an open space. By their second loop, 5 more families have joined this pirouette of parking misery, which causes increasingly greater traffic delays. Our service will allow those same families to park in easily accessible satellite parking locations because they know and they can rely on our shuttle service to transport them right downtown safely and efficiently. Benefits to homeowners and pedestrians. Continuous neighborhood watch. Our service will include our fully licensed and insured shuttle vehicles, driven by our fully trained and background check drivers. It will pass by the homes of Rehoboth residents every 30 minutes or less, adding another layer of security to the community. Additionally, we will also become a convenient and reliable way for resident homeowners and renters to travel around the city. This will become a unique selling point and popular feature for vacation rentals targeted to families visiting Rehoboth Beach. The safety of our patrons and those around our vehicles is our #1 concern. Our professional drivers are fully trained and have decades of experience behind the wheel and will slow down traffic to the recommended speed limit, ensuring a safer environment for pedestrians and biker traffic along our route. Mass Transit Reimagined. The Rehoboth Beach Shuttle will be a new and unique experience for our patrons, while also serving a valuable service. Our vehicles will be highly visible, with our vehicle routes servicing major pedestrian zones while avoiding heavy trafficked areas. We envision a bright, cheery, and of course jolly vehicle that will be an instant local icon. Transportation assurances. Our transportation service and brand name, the Jolly Trolley, provides an immediate credibility to the shuttle, as the public is already educated to our services in Rehoboth Beach and the community. Our established network of service professionals ensures that our vehicles are driven and maintained by trusted, licensed, and extremely talented mechanics. Additionally, our business and vehicles are fully licensed with all required regulating organizations such as DelDOT, USDOT, and the DTC Public Carrier Office, and are up to date with all known regulations as posted by said organizations. It's important to note we are the only private, fully licensed and insured fixed route operator in this area. Our vehicles will be trackable. Currently, all of our Jolly vehicles are trackable, and the Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle will be no different. Our shuttle vehicles will be trackable online on our website so that patrons can schedule their plans accurately ahead of time. We will make the boarding and exit procedure of our vehicles as easy and as safe as possible to keep our vehicle moving efficiently. Travel tickets and passes will be purchased online with credit card and at time of service in cash, giving options to our patrons. Patrons may ride our service to acquaint themselves with the city and popular landmarks and scenic vistas. This could be an interesting way to get to know the city if you're a new visitor. Employee parking. Possible future employee parking zones and discounted employee rates on the Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle will entice employees of downtown restaurants and shops to park out of town, freeing even more space for more patrons downtown. The Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle is part of the logical next step in the evolution of Rehoboth Beach. Vehicular traffic, parking, and pedestrian safety has always been major talking points for the city of Rehoboth Beach and this community, and the Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle provides aid to all three of those points. The outline of our proposed shuttle route benefits the maximum amount of visitors and residents in Rehoboth Beach while remaining an efficient and convenient mode of transportation, allowing patrons to leave their cars parked and experience more of the city without their cars, which reduces traffic and headaches. Local shops and restaurants will benefit with added foot traffic because of an increase in parking spots available from patrons who take our shuttle instead of driving in and parking downtown. With visitor and resident populations increasing year after year, mass transportation will be a critical part of navigating Rehoboth Beach safely and efficiently in the future. The Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle will provide a safe, unique, reliable, and valuable service to the city of Rehoboth Beach, its residents and its visitors. That will help to reinforce and solidify Rehoboth Beach as the nation's summer capital for years to come. So many are familiar with the phrase win-win, as a situation directly benefiting both parties involved. In our business, we take that saying a step further. One of the major foundations of our business strategy is the win-win-win philosophy. Essentially, when the business, organization, or municipality that we are partnering with, as well as the service provider, Jolly Trolley and Transit U, and most importantly, the community benefits, it is a mutually beneficial situation and therefore a win-win-win. The Jolly Trolley Rehoboth Beach Shuttle is a win-win-win. Thank you all for hearing our proposal today. Is there any questions? I'll open it up to.
I do. I'm very interested, and thank you very much for coming and bringing this idea. But I've got a couple of questions. As you were talking, and I think I heard you use the term, and forgive me if I don't have it completely correct, easily accessible satellite parking.
Yes.
where is that easily accessible satellite parking that I guess Jolly Charlie would be picking up from that location? Help me with
Yes.
that.
So we're looking along King Charles Avenue. Those are viable parking options. Deauville Beach is a parking location as well. We see a lot of residents parking along Columbia Avenue. So those are the locations we're looking at. There are also high residential areas, of course, right across the canal with lots of condos, lots of families stay there, that our Grove Park stop would service as well.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up across the canal where the density is quite strong. The expectation for those folks would be they would be walking over to the Grove Park stop, okay. The other question I had for you just at this moment is, could you talk a little bit about the Schoolview area and where the elementary school is? Is that something in your vision that would be a stop or a central point where folks could be picked up?
Near the bridge, you mean?
Lydia, can you put the map back up? She's going to light the screen back, and that'll be helpful, I think, in discussing the route.
Yes. So, well, this route, again, it's set up to service the maximum amount of people possible, while still remaining efficient and in a time frame that we feel comfortable providing a 30-minute loop in with our shuttle. It's important that the loop isn't too long, because if we have an hour-long route, guests are waiting longer, we would need more vehicles on this route. With a 30-minute loop, we feel confident with 2 vehicles to start for the first year, and we have a proposal for the previous years afterwards.
So this is 2 vehicles for this route.
To start.
So if they expand to 3 vehicles, perhaps Schoolview could be added on. I mean, right now and I've been working with Lydia on this from the beginning. As you saw, the idea of North Shores, that beach, being included as an alternate in the future, I think Schoolview would be possibly one of those alternatives for the future as well.
And I think that's what I was wondering, that the vision to grow might, I understand not initially, because obviously it's great to be able to get up, get running, address any issues, really tweak the idea and go from there. You also said something about that as the trolley would be in the neighborhoods, that you could come out of your house and get it.
Well, not directly.
Okay.
We would have set stops.
Okay, it's all set stops.
That would be the goal. I
Okay.
don't think having someone wave us down would be the most efficient way, because then we would be stopped all the time.
Right.
My point to that would be, we've set up the route so that if someone is on, say, Newcastle and Bayard, they can walk one way or the other and get to our service quite easily. It's only a block one way or the other. And that would be a good option for residents and visitors, and also a selling point as well when you're looking
Lydia,
for places.
are the small circles with the
No,
white
and on-
center, are those stops?
No, they're not. And I'm sorry for the confusion with Google Maps. We tried to craft it in a way to show our exact route, but to do that, you had to click on the route and drag it. And wherever I clicked and dragged, that
Okay.
dropped a dot, and I couldn't get rid of that.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that really helps clarify, thank you.
Yes. The main stops, again, would be Rehoboth Beach Bandstand and the Boardwalk, up at the Henalopen Hotel at North Boardwalk, Deauville Beach along Surf and almost Columbia. We would then proceed to Grove Park, and from Grove Park, we would head down to King Charles and almost to St. Lawrence Street. So kind of.
I'm really pleased to see the work on this, because I think it's so timely with our dialogue about regarding parking issues in the city. These things all go hand in hand, and the more we see, I think the better decisions we can make. So it's very timely. Thank you. So just to build a little bit on what Commissioner Sharp was asking. So for example, if the city were to begin to use the elementary school parking lot for parking during off-school hours, particularly during the summer season, you anticipate flexibility on this route to swing by the elementary school?
Potentially. However, I think if we did use the elementary school parking lot, it would be a short walk across that bridge there to reach our route. However, expansion routes are something that we're open to with negotiating with the city. Our Route B is the first route that we thought of utilizing. I don't know exactly how many parking spots are at the Gordon's Pond State Park. However, there are a lot, and I'm sure people that go to the beach there, they also travel into town and look for parking spots downtown. So if we can connect those two dots, it would be beneficial for those people.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see this come forward. We've talked on and off about a jitney type service or something on and on. I just wanted to make a few comments and seek some clarifications. The impetus for bringing this forward is from you?
Yes.
Because I remember in your parking notes, you're the only one that had something, Commissioner Calusi had something in her parking notes about seeking this. So you're taking a look at it. Just some general comments, because obviously we just got this week, and I haven't made my mind up on anything, but I start to think about different things. One is I always consider what ADA compliance, can we get those in wheelchairs and stuff on the thing? To me, that's very important and would need to be addressed. The gas for electric, you say non-diesel, that means gasoline engine. My preference would be electrics. However, I've mentioned it before, I think to maybe this group, if not to the Boardwalk group, that I've toured the Public Works Department in New York City and looked at their electric trash trucks. And it surprised me because they're not like our electric cars that are 100% electric without an engine in them. They actually have a gasoline or diesel engine in them that's smaller that then runs the generator for the electric thing. So, however, I still like the concept of electric vehicles, even if they have a smaller gasoline engine. Some of the things to think through in the future are the challenges. Challenges of routing, for instance. I'm very mindful that I was on a council not too many years ago when the Jolly Trolley came forward to us to ask for stops on Bayard Avenue, and at that time, that composition of the council was not receptive to it. And of course, we have a different council today, but I also am mindful that citizens came out against that. They didn't want any stops near their place or something. So what I'm saying is I would look forward to citizen input on this. And if we did a survey or whatever, I would hope that the citizens would be polled so that we know what their address is and how close do they live in proximity to the route or to the stops or everything. Maybe they're fine with it. Also, the challenges for routing for me are, is there enough coverage? Are we doing the right area? Is there a frequency of pickup? 30-minute loop, you said, would be the average time. If somebody started at Deauville Beach, it would take them 25 minutes maybe to get to the bandstand or something. Okay.
But on their return trip, it would take about 5.
And questions of usage. So I think this is a good introduction. I think we need time to give it some thought.
From my perspective, what Commissioner Byrne said is absolutely true. Is, one of the things, and I think I mentioned it the other day at the parking meeting, is, there are kind of three things here, and it's parking and moving people around from a parking perspective, also wayfinding, signage, whatever, but also mass transportation. And, technically mass transportation, other than DART going up and down Rehoboth Avenue or Jolly Trolley at this point in time, going from Dewey to the bandstand and back, we don't have any. And I think something like this is the wave of the future, because what we're trying to do with parking is move people around. And your question, Commissioner Sharp, about satellite parking, obviously, there's not that much in Rehoboth. I mean, it would be great if we had more. But, looking forward, this may be a better way for people to find other places within the city to park. Deauville Beach is a perfect example. There is no parking, no one parks there at nighttime, and I think that would be a great connection. I know some places in the Pines, on a regular weekend, not a July 4th weekend, but on Columbia or Henlopen, no one parks there. Most people, it seems like they park down around the south part of town and connect with the boardwalk and walk back up. So, I mean, and I think your point, Commissioner Mills, also about, places along the road. Yes, it's going to take a long time to do the loop, but I would think at some point in time there may be two loops, kind of one east-west as one loop, and connecting something like Schoolview, but also maybe going from Bayard at the bridge all the way over to Columbia, something like that. But I think this is, again, the wave of the future. Having people movers, which this would be, is a great thing. I think it really comes down to doing some more research on it, but it's also going to come down to a cost from our perspective. And I like this traditional that you put up on a picture. When I used to work at the Rusty Rudder about 35 years ago, and the Rusty Rudder had one, looked just like it. And they used to use it for weddings and whatnot, as well as to transfer people from the Rusty Rudder up to the bandstand and back, even with the Jolly Trolley. And it was very successful, and everybody loved it. I don't know what happened to that machine. But it's different than when I first got this proposal. I thought, oh, geez, they're just going to have the regular vans that you have, not the old one, but the regular vans. And I think this is like an iconic kind of trolley type thing, and with the colors, beachy. And so I think this is a very nice proposal, and I think this is got some wheels for the town.
Well, the part of the presentation is cut short here, and I respect if you don't want to give prices and stuff, but I think it does at least minimally need to be said that this is not a freebie. We don't just say yes and you're going to do it. This is a program to be funded in part by the city, so that's something for consideration as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something probably in the next phase of discussion. This was more than anything else to bring the idea to the forefront. And again, speaking of parking and all this stuff, I think this is a good time for doing it.
Well, I'm particularly intrigued about this bullet here on page 9 about employee parking, because we've talked so much about the challenges that creates, and how could this either be a short-term, mid-term, or long-term potential part of that solution?
Yeah, I agree with that, and
Yeah.
I think that as we move forward, looking at areas which we've already, in terms of Deauville Beach, and talking about in the summertime, the school property could be two really good areas for parking, and we'll just need to put our heads together to see what else we can do. But it's a very good introduction. You've done a nice job, and we appreciate it. It's a very good introduction, and I think I'd like to see us, as a group, it appears that there's a consensus that this is a good idea. Of course, the devil's in the details.
Yes.
And that's where I think we should head next, if that's agreeable to everybody else.
So what would that next step look like?
Well, I think maybe Commissioner Calusi, since you brought it to the forefront, is sitting down with Lydia and maybe finding out exactly, answering some of the questions that we had, about, okay, it's starting off with 2, when do we get to 3? Who's paying for it? How we pay for it? And I know in the presentation that went to the commissioners, we've got a little bit of the financial details, but, maybe you can sort through those and, come up with some kind of a presentation to us of your thoughts on how that could work. And maybe we have Lydia back again from a financial perspective.
Sounds fine to me.
I have what may be a legal question. I think it is a legal question. And because I'm new up here, when the city begins to look at something like this, some kind of a partnership with a commercial venture, and with all due respect to Jolly Trolley, are we under an obligation to go out and advertise it to other commercial vendors as an opportunity that we're looking at, or do we not have to do that?
Not in a specialized service like this, you wouldn't have. you wouldn't
Okay,
have to.
good, good. I mean, I think it's a very good idea. It just helps me think about, what are kind of logical next steps to move towards something like this.
And actually,
you.
it's a very good question, but if you think about it, they're already working within the confines of the city to an extent. Not confines of the city, but basically back and forth. So we've already had a
Oh, yeah,
relationship
there's
with them
incredible,
for years and years.
good positive history here. And
I think one of the things we
value
might
that.
consider doing as well is at some point, have a town hall to just a survey to elicit things from citizens to see what their feelings are and thoughts and ideas. So that's probably going to be a step that we'll want to look at moving forward as well.
I mean, that may be something for the Mind Mixer program that we have already in place, that you start putting some questions about the future.
Again, the input that we get, to have value, I really need to know where they live, whether they're near the route, what their proximity is. If Mind Mixer brings in 100 comments from on the west side of Route 1, it doesn't do me any good.
Well, in some ways, actually,
does.
the idea of the people coming from outside of town wanting to use it and not bring a car in could be valuable information or valuable input.
That's valid.
Yeah.
I-
But I think we'd want to require some address information so we have a good feel for where people will be, coming from.
Without any further data, my guess would be that there may be a majority of users of this service that live outside our 1 square mile.
I would think so as well.
And so I would think it would be important to hear from them. But I think we need to know, again, who is responding to whatever kind of data we collect.
Thank you, lady.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Lydia.
Lydia. Very helpful to start.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move right into new business, and if you don't mind, I'm going to move up C to A. Commissioner Schlosser wanted to present the new rate increases for the bandstand, for the Grove Park Convention Center and whatever, if people don't have any problem, is she had some different appointment. That works out all right?
Thank you, Mayor, for moving that up. Really appreciate it. And my co-presenter here to answer any detailed question is Mr. Sheffer, who's a member of the Bandstand Committee as well. The Bandstand Committee, about a year ago, when the convention center was opening up, started to look at the various rates across the venues in our town, and identified some information and data that led us to propose new rates for the convention center, for weddings on the beach, for Grove Park, and so we brought those proposed rate changes to the commissioners. The commissioners approved those new rates back in, I think, the March-April timeframe. Subsequent to the approval of those rates, we started to get even more feedback from the community, from our chamber, who was hearing from various businesses, from various entities who wanted to hold conventions in our town, particularly our nonprofit partners, both from within and outside town, that the rate increases, while some small rate increase was probably appropriate, the significant rate increases, trying to catch up for having no rate increases over many years, was too extreme and put the use of some of our in-town venues out of reach for many of especially our nonprofits. So the committee decided to relook again at the rates over the past several months and did a comprehensive, analysis of our rates compared with comparable rates across other similar towns and similar venues, convention centers, et cetera. And based on that data, that analysis, and a super presentation from Peter Spurney on the committee, as well as Mr. Sheffer, and in working with and getting a lot of feedback from Carol and the chamber, we actually have come forward with a proposed new set of rates for the commissioners to actually consider going into effect in January 2019. So we have a summary of those proposed new rates that we put in the back there for anybody that's attending today. And the commissioners have these in front of them. And the intent, we were asked by the mayor to bring this forward as soon as possible, as we need to do a lot of work to get these rates into place starting in January and getting communications out, et cetera. So let me just briefly go through what you have in front of you. I'll refer to this document that says 2018 City of Rehoboth beach rate increases. What you see on the left-hand side were the previous rates that were in place for Grove Park Convention Hall and beach weddings. What you see on the right-hand side is the changes that we had made in red, and that were voted on by the commissioners. And then in blue are the new rates that we're actually proposing at this time for the Board of Commissioners to consider, again, based on the feedback that we've received once we actually raised the rates. So new information that we received that caused us to do this, why we changed them in large part was we did find that we had not raised rates for a significant amount of time. We were somewhat out of sync with other venues in our area, and we were generally operating, for example, the convention center at a loss. Those were the reasons to raise the rates. But again, as in further discussion and with feedback from the community, we found that the general consensus was our convention center is more or less operating as more of a community center. And 80% of the business there, the folks that do rent that are nonprofits and that bring our community together. So again, that's why we relooked at these rates. So the new proposed rates are listed here. And we really didn't make any changes to Grove Park at this time. We really focused, because this is where we got the feedback, on convention hall and beach weddings. So if you, again, refer to that one page or we handed out, if you look on the right-hand column, what we're proposing is for the convention hall, the original rates that have been in place for many, many years for the for-profit rate Monday through Thursday was $600. We originally recommended it got moved up to $800, but after significant feedback, we're now recommending it stay at $600. The for-profit rate, Friday through Sunday, has for many years been an $1,100. We had made the recommendation back in the spring that it be increased to $2,500 Friday through Sunday. We are now recommending that it go back down to $1,500, so a slight increase over what it was in the past to help us cover at least some of our operating costs. What you have, again, on the left-hand side for the nonprofits, I'm not going to read you every single one of them, but the bottom line is we want to stay the same as in the past. We want to propose that we go back to $550 for the Monday through Thursday nonprofit, and Friday through Sunday go from what was approved back in the spring of $2,000 back down to $1,000. In terms of the beach wedding rates, you can also see that. This is where we probably got the most feedback from folks. We had originally recommended that we make the fee, move the fee from $175 to use the beach for a wedding to $500 with a $50 fee. We're now recommending going to $200, and that's inclusive of the fee as well, which is non-refundable, the permit fee. So you have this in front of you. Again, we've spent a lot of time talking with a lot of folks in the community and our businesses and our hotels and the chamber. And at this point, and I just would like a nod or any comments from the chamber here, but I believe the chamber is much more comfortable with these rates, if I'm not mistaken, Carol, if you don't mind. Carol put in a lot of work, and her team as well, presenting analysis here, so.
Carol Everhart, Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce. First, I just want to thank everyone for relooking at this and reconsidering. We did get a lot of feedback in a negative way as to the increases and how high they were. So you're relooking at it and re-meeting, and they have met a lot. And there's a lot of volunteer effort put into it, and we appreciate that. And the rates as you're presenting them are acceptable as far as the chamber's hat is concerned. Okay.
Thank you very much, Carol. And Steve Sheffer, I know you helped with this analysis in the new improved rates, the new improved rates. Any comments from your end or anything you'd like to highlight before we open it up for discussion?
The only thing that I would like to add is that a lot of the decision to revisit the rates was based on projected usage for 2019. And we didn't see, in fact, we saw a drop-off in some of the reservations that had made going in, at least from some of the historical users of the convention hall or the community hall. And so that was another driving factor. Another one is looking at some of the expansion in neighboring areas of hotels that will provide like a one-stop shopping for those types of conventions and things like that. And another aspect that went into this is that the mission of the bandstand and convention center committee is a limited scope, and that's done by design. And so what we discovered is there are a lot of other opportunities that may be available to us in the future on how to better utilize the use of this building. But that is subject to further discussion to a broader group to include a lot of feedback and information from Sharon Lynn and as city manager and her team, as well as the Board of Commissioners. So there are opportunities in the future, we believe, that the rate structure could be increased, but for the short term, because of the not so favorable feedback that has been received and the current bookings and projected bookings for 2019, it was believed that we could set a more modest increase for some of the rental, and then give us time to revisit it, collect more information, get more feedback from stakeholders in this, and make a better informed decision on rate increases going into the future.
Thank you. I'm mindful of my philosophy during the original discussion was I favored more in-town businesses getting discount, whether it was profit or nonprofit. And I lost that battle, but that's the way it goes. I see some of the fees here are reverted back to the same rates, and I don't know if I agree or disagree, but I do think it's reasonable that we should be able to increase rates over time to cover our operational costs and our labor and to pay back our renovation costs on that. So I'm not 100% comfortable with going back to the previous rates, but we don't have any list here on the left of how long those rates have been in place, whether they were only there for a year or 10 years or something. So otherwise, I'm fairly comfortable with
Commissioner Mills, to the point that you just made, a big part of the discussion when we looked at the rates for the convention hall for the Monday through Thursday days is that there's a very modest usage during those days. And so we were fearful that if we were to increase that at all in the short term, that whatever minor usage we have during Monday through Thursday would go away. And so again, it's more of trying to find a reasonably competitive set of rates going into 2019. But I think we should have a very healthy conversation at a pretty, a good rate. I think we have some momentum here, and to get, to make sure that we're considering all of the factors, so that when we make suggestions for the rates going into 2020, they're better informed, and we can actually do the things that you mentioned, is recoup cost and actually, try to get closer to at least a break even over time, but not have it take 20 years, but try to do it in a more rapid pace.
Or break even, or just really have the data to make a conscientious decision
Right.
that, we're just going to supplement this with some other city revenue, just to keep it available as a community center and not necessarily a for-profit center.
Commissioner, a couple of questions. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm very comfortable with doing this. I didn't support some of them in the first place, but my biggest concern, however, is when we change the prices and we go back, the process for notifying those that have already bowed out of 2019. Somehow the process to me needs to be very fair and equitable, so that those that have rented, there's the one club that's rented Super Bowl weekend every year for X number of years, they ought to get that first slot opportunity for that slot, et cetera. So.
Sharon, please.
Just remarking on Commissioner Mills, so we are fair and equitable. We do that. I think it's been noticed before that the Jazz Festival, particularly, a new group came in, not a new group, but a competing group, if you will, and the Jazz Festival, original Jazz Festival, was here for 25 plus years. So we try to work with every group on an individual basis. As far as the communication regarding those who bowed out because of the high prices and those who already booked for next year at these prices, there is a plan in place to contact those individuals, and that will be done timely if, in fact, these revised rates are implemented. And as far as the concern regarding when the fees were changed last, I know myself that I took a look at these fees 5 years ago when I came here. The wedding fees at that point were increased from $125 to $175, and some of the other fees were just increased just a bit. So that was the last time that I'm aware of the fees being changed.
All right, thank you.
So I'm just really curious, when you talked about the drop-off rate, or folks who have not decided to use us again, do you have any other specifics on that? Or what are, maybe the better question for me is, what are the specifics on that?
We actually got that information from the city manager and her team, based on bookings that I believe Steve Perry was getting in his role working here in this building.
Yeah, Stephen had mentioned that they didn't necessarily have year to year bookings for over the past 4 or 5 years, the numbers, but at this point in time, it was a decent amount less than at this point in time, just since 16 or 15, when the convention center was last open.
So would that, I think I'm answering my own question. I have the same question on the weddings, but we haven't gotten there yet, so.
Yeah, the weddings, I think, was the same thing. He was hearing from a number of people that they were balking at it and saying, well, I'll call you back. That was the gist of most of the conversations.
And Commissioner Sharp, one of the other things that we did is Peter Spurney had done a fabulous job of collecting comparable data on the fees at similar type venues as Commissioner Schlosser mentioned earlier. But he looked not only within Sussex County, but he looked at Dover, he looked in the southwestern parts of Pennsylvania to try, in like the Ocean City area within Maryland, to try to get a broader geographic perspective of what the expectations are, and what some of the current fees are. And then what we did is try to convert each of those to make sure that we had a reasonably fair comparison to a price per square footage. And we discovered in doing that that the earlier rates from the spring that had been recommended and approved were well outside the range of what would have been competitive, and that's one of the driving factors for recommending lower rates for 2019.
Thank you.
Well, I had two questions, and you've just answered one, Steve. Thank you, about comparable rates and the competitiveness of going forward, and I'm really pleased to see that. The question I have, because I'm fairly new to this, is what does one receive when you pay the fee, other than the space? Is there a police presence, a security presence? Are there any other amenities that come with it? Obviously, if you're in this building, you get heat and light or air conditioning and light.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Commissioner Byrne, for that. I don't have all the details, but my understanding is it would cover, general housekeeping and, the normal support that the facilities folks here would provide, and security as well. But I think in some cases,
So there's not an additional cost for
well,
security for
I think there
groups
are some
beyond this
additional
fee?
costs. But I don't want to get myself in trouble here by speaking out of school. But I do believe that there is some nominal support that is provided, and then there are other things. But I think the purpose here was to focus primarily on just the general usage of the facility, and not any kind of special needs, or, I don't think this factors in use of the kitchen, or, I'm just not certain as to what this encompasses.
Maybe the manager could elaborate.
So specifically relating to the convention center, there's obviously our part-time staff who basically tend to the needs of any individuals using the convention center, including opening the building, closing the building, setup, assisting with that, and trash removal is part of that. And there is a presence during the time that there is an event, so there's a city staff presence. As far as security, anything concerning the police department, that would not be included here.
Okay.
So how is that decision on security made? Does the entity that's renting request it, or can they say, no, we're not going to pay for police because we don't think we need it, and yet, there may be a different point of view from the city manager's office, from the chief's office?
So, correct, there might be a different point of view, but in most cases, I'd have to say all of the rentals since my time here, maybe one or two reached out to have security presence, and that would be determined by the police chief and his staff relating to if it was necessary or not.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve. So is there any other discussion on this? Mayor, I'd just propose that we put this on the agenda again for a vote in December, further discussion if necessary. And to Tony's point, we do have the report kind of, I think since we got Steve on board, who now tracks all this, Stephen Perry from Sharon Shop, we know that there was about 31 rentals in 2018 from the time it opened through December. And as of this point, we only have 3 bookings for the entire year of 2019. So we don't have a lot to compare it to, but that's the data that we have right now. So just FYI. So anyway, I'd like to propose that we put this for a vote on December 21st, I think is our next meeting.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Good, thank
Any
you.
other?
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the accommodation in moving this forward. I have to
I don't
leave.
have any questions. I absolutely support a vote on the 21st because I think we need to just get on with this. But I did want to make, I think it's a compliment, and I don't want it to come across as a backhanded compliment. But we got into this situation, as I recall, originally from recommendations from the committee. right? And
Yes.
I recall all the conversations we had about what should we do and how should we do it. And I could swear I remember saying, I really want to support the committee because we have them for a reason. And I think it's a learning here that however we went about that the first time, we've got our eyes open now. So I'm very supportive of continuing to support the committee, and I think it's just we have to do the right thing in order to make the convention center more attractive. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment on behalf of the committee somehow. I'm looking for that silver lining. I think it's there, but I think it's like anything with these issues. They're very difficult, and you know, and you get a lot of data, you get input. I mean, we talked about these for probably 6 or 7 months on that
did.
committee, and then we made the decision, and boy, we got a lot more feedback after that. So, so I think it's a call. I do to part of I think your point. I mean, the committee really jumped in and said, you know what, we're hearing a lot of feedback, and you know what, we need to readdress this. So,
And I didn't want it to
really-
be misconstrued
Sure.
to anybody, especially in the public, that we did not pull these rates out of the sky.
That's a good point.
And so I think staying the course with the reevaluation from the committee is really the right thing to do. So.
Good,
I do
well
have one
put.
more comment, and I hate to belabor this, and I do value all of the work that the committee has done, and I'm assuming that you had additional data, perhaps a lot of data in front of you, but to perhaps build on Commissioner Mills' expressed concern question, in the future, and I know we have to get on with this for the new year because we're almost there, but for the future, it'd be really helpful to have some data on what does it cost to have an event? What does it cost the city to have an event in Grove Park for a half a day, for a full day? What does it cost the city to open the convention hall in terms of, you know, all just the costs that are involved? So when we talk about, are we meeting our costs? Are we building a little for the future to help pay for the facility? You know, I don't know that by looking at this data, and if the committee has that, you know, it'd be wonderful to share. And if you don't have it, I think, you know, in the future, as we look ahead to yet a next year, it'd be very, very helpful and very appropriate to have that.
I'm nodding my head because we did have some analysis done on, but we need to do a better job. And we did some analysis on the expenses related to the convention center, but it wasn't necessarily financially tracked in a way that we could really tell by budget line. I think with our new system, we'll have a better way of doing this in the future. But we did have some data that definitely showed we were operating at a loss. But then what really kicked in, Dick, it's maybe hard to summarize, but is what is the concept of the convention center? You know, do we want to elevate it to a for-profit center, or is it really a community center that brings us together? And what we really want to continue to do is encourage the nonprofits. And I think as we talked to more folks and did more outreach and had more communication, it was pretty much the latter, you know, that we really want it to be there for the community, for our nonprofits. So, so that was a big part.
I understand that discussion,
Yeah.
but there still is a bottom line. What does it
Yeah.
cost the city to open the
We
door?
we do have that, but
for
next
a
year
group and so on.
yeah.
Good. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll just move on. What's on the new business, A, discussion of suggested amendments to the city personnel ordinance is going to be postponed. I think the Personnel Committee is going to have a meeting in early January, and those suggested amendments from the city manager will go to the committee at that point in time. So we're going to move right to the discussion to consolidate business license categories and amend City Code Chapter 120 on businesses. City manager, please.
Well, we're getting set up here. This, Mayor and Commissioners, and those of the public who are in the audience today. This is really I'll say a few years in the making. Consolidation of business licenses. If you look at the ordinance, we have quite a few. So this is a consolidation of 140 business licenses, varying degrees, as you can see, down to 78. And the importance of this from my standpoint, along with the city staff who generally, deal with this on a daily basis, we're looking to regulate some inefficiencies and do a better job in billing cycles. So we have varying permits that are due at varying times of the year. This business license specifically runs currently July 1 of each year through June 30th. And it's really in, and maybe it was set up this way perhaps, but to be in line with the parking passes that are sent out in mid-March. But this is like I said, an efficiency as well as a consolidation for many varying reasons that we can go into. But the staff who generally deal with this, as you know, Joanne Purry, the permit coordinator, and our staff accountant at the front desk, Jean Lee, we all met several times during the course of this last year, including the IT director, who had an instrumental role in this as well, based on what we're doing with the Munis implementation, our financial software, and getting these permits out. So I'm going to turn it over to Joanne and Jean right now. They, as I said, deal with this for the bulk of the year, and they've heard the complaints and also have come across some fine tuning that I think will be beneficial, not only to the city but also to the business license holders themselves. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Joanne Perry. I'm the permit coordinator for the city. And the first goal is to bring Rehoboth in line with the state in terms of the business license renewals. We'd like to go to a January 1st date as opposed to a June 30th date. And that has a lot to do with when we mail the parking passes to the contractors. We mail them at the beginning of the year, and they don't renew until June 30th. So at this point, we're mailing where we don't know whether folks are going to renew. So that's a big change that we'd like to make. That's the first most important change. And we'd also like to get rid of, we bill contractors 4 or less employees at 160 and 5 or more at 325. And we'd like to consolidate general contractors at 275. So that's kind of the overall, and I'm going to give you Jean for some details.
Okay, so on our changing of the year itself, like she said, the business license, we're kind of, or the parking permits, we kind of mail out blind. We don't know who's going to renew on July 1st, but they get a parking permit because they're currently licensed. Right. If we move it to January, whoever is currently licensed when we mail in March, they're still going to be currently licensed throughout the summer, so no one's getting a parking permit without a business license. It's kind of an honesty thing. We don't know, nobody mails it back when they don't renew their license like they're supposed to. So it avoids that situation. How we propose that we change this year, we've looked at this, tried to look at it from a business way, we've looked at it from a staff way, what makes the most sense for being able to enforce licenses and all of that stuff. We've decided that the best way would probably be we will send out renewals March 2019, like we would have any other March. The difference is, instead of them expiring in June, they get an 18-month license, which won't expire until December of 2020. As a budget look, we still get the revenue in the same fiscal year. It's just deferred revenue from June to December. So they get an 18-month license. they might feel like they get 6 months free, and we have time to enforce those and do everything before we end up sending out the next ones. So then the next renewals would be sent out towards the end of 2020 for them to renew by January 1st of 2021. And then we would be on our 1-year licenses again.
Excuse me, Jean. So is there a cost differentiation in that 18-month license?
So we have some cost adjustments that we're going to talk about. So we'd like to do all of the new stuff when we change this year, but they'll just be billed at the 12-month rate. They're not going to be charged for 18 months. They're going to be charged whatever their standard 12-month business license is going to be.
What is the philosophy behind not prorating and giving the extra time for free?
Well, when we look at it, so we're going to bring in the same amount of money, whether we bring it in July or in December, and then it'll be every December after that. There would be prorating. Right now, we prorate with if you're come in and get a new license and we're already through a quarter of the year, you get prorated at that. So there's a lot of different steps if we change the prices. So from our point of view and for the businesses to change all this around, it would just be charge them the 1-year rate. We'll get it in December, not in July or in June. And then we'll be right on a regular basis in December. So it kind of came down to, we're gonna have to move around a lot more prorations if we do an 18-month, and then we're gonna have to change it. And we're going to a new computer system, Munis, during all of this. So we would have to put the data in twice in order to do that at an 18-month rate and then again at a year rate. And talking with the ITs and that, it's harder to take the data back out of Munis and change it up. So we're trying to, in this time frame, be able to do just the year rate, make it an 18-month license, and have the computer system set up right from the get-go.
So it's not a loss to the city, it's less confusing for the contractors.
All right, thank you.
And then on prorating for our regular licenses, we do, like I said, do prorate after the first quarter. On these 18-month licenses, no prorations will take place until we get past that 1-year mark. So for the first 6 months of it, if a new contractor comes in, they're going to pay that full year. There's not going to be any prorations until we get to that 12-month mark, and then we'll fall under the regular prorations that are already in the code, so that we don't lose any money on those. Kind of the time frame to make this all happen, because it takes a year to come back again. We're talking about it today, December, January, hopefully get a vote on it, so that in March we can mail out the information, the new renewals out of the new computer system, everything will be set up, because we do need a little bit of time to get everything set up in the new system so that our mailings go out correctly for the new renewals. And then in November or late fall, we'll start with our regular year renewals. Our license mergers, this shows a gist of which ones are going to what, but you have 2 spreadsheets. One is like 4 pages long. That is our current types of licenses. And then the shorter 1.25-page one is our proposed new ones.
So it's a
Joanne's
lot,
gonna talk about this.
it's a little bit of basically computer housekeeping where there's a lot of detail to the old codes in the types of businesses that is not really necessary that we can consolidate, where the different types of retail businesses can just go into 101 retail sales. A lot of the different types of food service can go into 201 food only as opposed to food with alcohol. And there on down the list, we're just consolidating those numbers. So this part of it is just the computer sort of housekeeping. We're looking at changing a couple of fees, and that's where we need your assistance and input. This part is just essentially the way they are designated in the computer.
Okay, so next is the contractor fees, which is a good portion of our licenses. Currently we have 2 types of licenses for all the different contractors we have. We have a 4 or less employees, which is at $160, and a 5 or more employees, which is at $325. Most contractors come in here, say they're 5 or less. We really have no way of verifying if they're 5 or less employees. We take them at their word. They get their license at $160. We don't know if they should be paying $325 or not. The majority of our contractors are coming in and just applying for the 4 or less employees. Our proposed change is to make this a flat price for all out-of-town contractors of $275. Doesn't matter how many employees they have, their annual license will be $275. The only exception to a contractor license being $275 are those ones that are in-town offices. So a contractor with an in-town office right now already pays $325 regardless of employees because they're in-town businesses, and all in-town businesses for the most part are $325 for offices, warehouses, and that type of stuff. So an in-town contractor would pay $325 just like they are right now. Anybody coming into town who does not have a home office or warehouse in town, they would be paying the flat $275 fee for the license.
And the justification for the differential is that they,
For the in-town and out-of-town?
for the in-town paying more additional city services or?
City
Exactly.
services.
They have the city services of being in town, so they would pay the regular in-town rate.
Correct.
Okay, the next, so this next slide is just a financial breakdown of, so you can see if we change everything to $275 opposed to what it is right now, we're not going to lose any revenue. The first year we'll have a slight gain in revenue, but that's pretty much just informational, so you can see revenue-wise how that would affect the contractors. The next one that there's a major price change in is massage therapists and masseurs. We actually didn't even have them in our code, and we were charging them a different rate than anyone else. So they were being charged, the owner of the business for an in-town business was only being charged $150. And each masseur was only being charged $50 to operate there under their license in the building.
Okay, help me understand this. That if it's not in the code, was that just a business practice that had been instituted over time?
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
not sure when it started, but that's what had happened over the years.
Okay.
So our proposed for them, and to put them into the code was, we are kind of going off of like the realtors, or we were basing it off of what we do with realtors right now, where the broker or the main person in the office, they're paying the in-town office $325 rate. That's what the owner of the massage therapist business was paying $325 for an in-town business. Each masseur who is required to have a license, instead of paying $50, would be paying $110, which is the same thing we would do with realtors. So each additional person that's required to have a license for that business would be paying the $110 rate.
My recollection, feeding off of Tony's question, my recollection is that if you did not fit a business category, you paid
The higher
The
rate.
higher
the
rate.
highest price of all,
Yes.
right?
But for some reason, this one slipped through the cracks somewhere along the way, and so we
How?
wanted to adjust it, so recognize that it is something different than a regular, and do this, set a rate for them.
So I have a question. As far as, for example, realtors and massage therapists, et cetera, they get a free parking permit, is that correct? It's fr-
Every person that has a business license receives a parking pass. Yeah, for free,
Transferable.
which is
Yes,
maybe
it's
something to think about.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to talk about that one.
That is something we thought about in this, but it's not really this.
It's not part of this presentation.
Sure,
presentation,
sure,
but
but I
definitely-
just wanted to confirm.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, so then the next part of the presentation is really just going through the code. In going through everything, we found things like, what's highlighted are things that would change. Right now, our code does not reflect the $650 for any bar or restaurant with serving alcohol, doing $6.50. $6.50 is currently what we charge them. So that's kind of a cleanup in the the code right there. The next one on the next page, the changes, we wanted to consolidate a lot of these in our code, things that fit together. So we consolidate the vehicles and the bicycles rentals just into one because they're pay the same fee. Amusement machines, we have multiple things in our code about amusement machines, 5 cents or less, 25 cents. Make them all one and include pool tables there as well. Vending machines, that's actually another price change. We would like to change that price to $50. And combine all of those into one code.
What is it currently?
Currently,
I think it's maybe 35, it's slightly less, maybe 15
okay.
less.
Close
But
enough.
we want to, we want to consolidate the service machines, whether it's a washing machine or a Pepsi machine, that they're all $50 across the board.
it's $31 right now.
Yeah.
And then, so the highlighted reserves, those are just spots where there were other vending machines, other car rental type things. And we also wanted to take out the special events. According to our code right now, special events are supposed to get single-use business permits. Well, we now have a code or process just for special events. So we wanted to take that completely out of the business license section because it doesn't apply any longer.
Right.
And then here's just really adding the massage therapists. And really with the 275, we wanted to bring any of those out-of-town type things. Like this one, this 275 is an auctioneer who doesn't have a in-town business. Bring them to 275 as well, so that we're kind of keeping fees across the board more at a standard. The next one, this is where we would bring the contractors. We change it from 4 or less or 5 and more to in-town or out-of-town, basically. With the rates being 275 and 325. Another change, the pet walking services. So currently that $95 license says pet services. That is very misleading because a groomer or somebody like that with full-fledged business is supposed to be paying the $325 for a full-fledged business.
So it's a little broad.
So we wanted to bring it specifically down to a pet walker pays the $95, not other pet services. Because we actually do have a groomer who is paying $95 right now for a grooming business. That's really wasn't the gist of that when it was
Right.
at that $95.
Yeah,
So,
I'm glad to see that, yeah.
some other things next. That goes with the grass cutting service as well. We wanted to specify that more, that it does not include landscaping. Landscaping as a whole falls under contractors. This other $95 one is specifically just somebody that goes out and cuts grass, and that is it. It is not the bushes and the landscaping and all of the rest of that. So those are all just kind of making them more specific. And then we wanted to add at the end of that, the section for, we have a miscellaneous for $325. We wanted to add a miscellaneous for $275. So if you're out of town and you don't fall in anything else,
That's that
you'd be
category.
$275. If you're in town, you'd be $325. Let's see, the next one.
And this is just the difference between the restaurants with alcohol and the restaurants without. And I think we were
Just cleaning that one up.
cleaning it up there.
And that is all of our proposed.
Explain the cleanup there.
Okay, so
for
currently
the
we-
restaurants
Right
serving
now,
alcohol.
in our code, it says that they only pay.
I don't know if it was where they were having the different names for the restaurants. There was a bunch of different names for restaurants. And we were trying to consolidate that down.
No, it was a, okay, so currently in our code, it says restaurants are only $270, and with alcohol, it's $6.50. We charge, in-town restaurants right now are paying $3.25. Our code says $2.70, it is $3.25 right now. So that was a cleanup, fix it to what it's supposed to be,
Okay.
right now.
And it got to that amount just by happenstance, one day, and then it continued on. That's good enough.
I have no idea.
I just speculate. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we were to, as you said, anyone who has a permit gets a parking pass. How difficult would it be if we had people who said, I don't want the parking pass, or I do want the parking pass? And so in other words, if we had an increased fee for people with parking passes, would that be really difficult for you to manage?
I would think that before changing the fee for the actual license, we would offer a discounted permit for parking versus changing the license fee. I think that would be,
Oh, okay. So in
an
other words,
easier
we
way to
would
go.
maybe keep the fees the same, but not offer parking permits as free, but at a reduced cost.
correct. Yeah,
Okay, just a thought.
sure.
Or at the retail cost.
Maybe at the retail cost.
I just have one curiosity about all of these fees. Do we happen to know if these are the kinds of fees other communities charge?
We did some research into that, and it's interesting, we're very much in line, other than for bars and restaurants. If you look as close as Dewey and New Jersey, some of those fees are exorbitant. They're in the thousands for
So
bars
we
and
would be
restaurants.
very low.
So the other fees, we're pretty much in line, but with the bars and restaurants, we're a little low.
Thank you.
Let me just clarify, your two spreadsheets there, you've got the lengthy one and the non-lengthy one. Just review with me the coloration, you've got blue and red.
Okay, so the red ones are mergers and the blue ones are really changes. So the red ones, those are ones we want to just merge with other ones, we're not changing prices.
Okay,
The blue notes, those are notes we actually want to change the name of something or change the fee of something.
so they're still there, they're not being deleted, they're just,
They're just changing.
all right. Changing to clarify, more descriptive, okay.
And again, this is a preliminary rollout. We'll certainly be working with the city solicitor put this in ordinance form, and hopefully have you able to vote on this. We can bring it back in January at workshop in the ordinance form if you'd like, or we can just bring the changes to your December meeting, December 21st.
Good job, a lot of thought went
Thank
into
you.
this, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So how do we answer the question? Is it December or is it January?
If you're good with this, we can work on putting in an ordinance form and bring it back for a vote on December 21st. So the mailings, will be going out next year, but, it's certainly up to the commissioners here.
I think
December 21st?
December.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And you don't have to be here at 7? 3 o'clock is the first December change meeting? But thank you very much. It
Nice
has been a
job.
lot of work.
Very nice.
Into
Very helpful.
this. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Great. All right, move right down. That's it for our agenda. Commissioner comments, if I could
I
just.
have one comment, or really, I would love it if, to try to keep some momentum going with this idea of the shuttle to see where we're going to be in the future. I'd appreciate it if you have thoughts, questions, comments about specifically, now that you have it in your hands to digest for a little while, if you'd email them to me so I can in the future get together with Lydia and we'll try to address some of those things.
Be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment real quick. I don't know if anybody went to the Christmas parade this year, but it was pretty spectacular. And it wasn't as cold as some previous years, so it was a little more enjoyable than normal. But one of my joys in the past of the Christmas parade is actually seeing our Public Works Department, Street Department, other departments light up their trucks. And we've had a void for many years. And this year I noticed I think it was our Water Department, had a display in there where it was all lit up, and they walked in it, and
Robert was
Mr.
out
Downs, Robert Downs, with his Christmas suit was out there. It was spectacular, and I hope you would pass on that it was very enjoyable and appreciative of them taking the time to do that.
They were proud to do that.
Great. My only comment is on the future meetings, just a reminder. Friday, December 14th, there's a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. It's one of their CDP meetings, and they've asked for the commissioners to go, and that's at 3 o'clock this coming Friday. December 20th, as Glenn mentioned before, is the tree hearing for those that are going to be present and participate. December 21st is our next next regular meeting, and we'll have the swearing in prior to the meeting or at the beginning of the meeting for the new commissioner. And then
3 o'clock.
And that's at 3 o'clock. Yes, thank you for reminding me. And then the January 5th town hall here, with the January 5th being a Saturday, 10 o'clock is a further discussion on the possibility of a wastewater transition to Sussex County. And those are my only comments. Anybody else?
I don't have any.
If not, thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a couple days. Thank you. You know,
You said you're going to look at the
I think
possibility.
Dick's question, I think to you on the Jolly Trolley kind of thing. If we were to